Hello, everyone. This is the CTE TEACH podcast. We are your hosts. I am Christopher McClung.
And I'm Deidra Puentes.
And today we are joined by the very first of our very first show, our special panel with exceptional mentors. And this is
Becky Sharp. I was peer coach leader and I am retired now.
Hi there, Melissa Dix, Director of Education Services here at CRIROP.
And I'm Marisa Miley, Employment Program Coordinator Intern here at CRIROP.
fantastic.
Okay, so first of all, we would like to thank everyone for listening. CRIROP has created this podcast in partnership with the California Department of Education. And it's really just to bring forth more awareness of CTE, and that is career technical education, not the other one that you get when you Google things. And we just want to share information about teaching, about the importance of mentoring, teacher retention, and everything else, all the other CTE things that we like to talk about. So in each of our podcasts, we are going to do a mentor shout out. So first, we want to start with Becky. Who was your mentor?
Well, I have a number of them. I think before I got involved with CTE TEACH, we had another program, which I'll talk about a little bit. And Dr. Marilyn Shipley, she really led the way for me learning how to work with teachers. So anyways, she has a special place in my heart. And then Greg DiGiovanni, he was my coordinator, CTE TEACH coordinator, and we were partners in crime and got the whole ball rolling.
That's cool. Greg was mine too. Awesome. So what we want to do is talk about just what CTE TEACH is. A lot of our people who are following or talking or even seeing this right now may not know just what is CTE TEACH. And so Becky, you were one of the first to kind of get CTE TEACH started. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what is it and how to get started?
Okay. Well, originally, CRIROP has always been very supportive of their teachers. And we had a program where there was one teacher coach on each of our campuses. And we found that it was really difficult for these teachers to get out of the classroom. And so our teachers, we felt, just weren't getting the attention that we wanted them to have. So I was selected to become the peer coach leader, in which I began what we called the TIP program, Teacher Induction Program, here for CRIROP alone. And one day I was getting ready to leave for the day, and our superintendent at CRIROP had a visitor from California Department of Education, Clay Mitchell, and she caught me in the parking lot and she had me explain the whole program. And he wanted to learn more about it. So he came back for another visit and I told him what I was doing and so forth. And he came up with the idea we needed to spread this throughout California and expand it to not only in-person mentoring, but also online and using technology to our advantage in our large state of California. So that's initially how it got started.
Okay.
So then we began recruiting other sites throughout the state, and we grew and grew and grew, and I'm so happy we're still around here today.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. And Melissa, and then you kind of stepped into the CTE TEACH role when somebody decided to go off and retire and
Right?
enjoy vacation.
A couple of us have tried to fill those big shoes that Becky left us.
Yeah.
Yes, I think one of the big issues was within the state of California. Of course, we know kind of what the typical teacher, induction program might look like, or what a teacher goes through. You go to 4 years of college, and then you go to a credential or a master's program where you get all that that theory about what's learning and how to deal with children and classroom management and how to make a lesson plan and assessment and all those things that teachers learn to go into the general classroom. And then they do student teaching where they get to go, spend 6 months or longer into a classroom. And once they get the job within that, there's embedded mentors. And here in California, it used to be called the BITSA program, where they'd have a 2-year induction program. So once they became a teacher, they still had that wraparound support. With CTE teachers, for those of our listeners that don't know, they come straight out of industry into the classroom. To be a CTE teacher in California, you don't have to have that 4-year degree. You don't have to have a normal teaching credential. We can pluck someone right off of a construction site, or out of an office space, or a medical office, and they can become a teacher because we want them to have that industry experience where they may have never dealt with students. They don't understand some of that teacher theory kinds of things. And they would just we'd take them, and they take their love of industry and what they want to share, and we throw them right into a classroom. And I think a lot of us here are products of that old model where it's like, the content, so go teach it. You're like, wait, I don't know how to teach it. I know what I know. And so, one thing we did, with Becky here at CRIROB, when we realized our teachers needed more than just somebody that they could, pick up the phone and call, is that we needed that full program of support. So with TIP, we created that 2-year program specifically for folks that are coming straight out of industry into the classroom, and giving them that wraparound support to support them as they do get their designated subjects or CTE credential, and then kind of get through those first 2 years.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's very helpful. We have some new teachers going through it now, and they're always talking. In fact, they're so close in TIP that one of them ended up becoming a groomsman in the other one's wedding. This is just like in the past few months, because they made that connection. They're going through TIP together.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that's the case. Is it's not just the mentor in this case. With Becky, and now Deidra is that person for us. But it's it wraps them all around each other. And in our program, we have those first and second year teachers. So it's the people that have already kind of been in the trenches for a little while, sharing their ideas, and just them getting together, once a month or more, and just sharing what they're learning, their successes, their failures, and just besides the love and support we can wrap around them, it's that camaraderie and just building that teacher fellowship together. I think is one of the best things. And I had a teacher that left the program, graduated from the program, a year ago, and she said, it always seemed difficult. The end of the day, you've been teaching all day, after you've stayed up all night planning lessons and grading papers and things, and then you have to go to TIP. But she said now that it's going to be gone, she's really going to miss that piece of getting together with her colleagues and things. So, I think there's all those unintended consequences that you don't realize. We want them to feel supported. We want teacher retention, but we don't think about the big relationship piece that we're building.
I had one teacher, speaking about missing it, he said, he was asked how was TIP going for him. He says, well, it's kind of like going to the gym. What you dread it till you get there, and when you're happy you went once you're there.
Right. Yeah. No regrets. Awesome. Good. That's great.
Okay, so we're gonna go into our next topic, but before we do, Melissa, who's your mentor? Shout out.
Like Becky, I think I've had several, but if we're talking, brand new teacher, right out of industry into the classroom, I think about almost 16 years ago now, my mentor was my program manager and the person that hired me here at CRIROP, and that was Cindy Prentice. She, saw something in me, I guess, that thought I could handle this job, and so just giving me that chance, and then just very supportive, very positive. It was nice too because she had taught in the industry, been from the same industry I was, and we shared some, similar backgrounds and things. So it was just that very, very positive support, encouraging, always there with questions and things. And it's great because she's still my life today, and I still look to her as one of my mentors and somebody I aspire to be. Very, very privileged to have people like her and many others in my life. But as a new teacher, it was definitely her.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Okay, so thank you, Melissa. We have our next topic is basically on mentoring, and we just want everyone to kind of share what mentoring is and why it's important. Like, to you, what's your definition of mentoring?
You know what? I think Melissa really hit on it when she was talking, because I've done a lot of mentor trainings where I'm training mentors that are then going to work with young people, not necessarily teachers. But in every single different environment, in every single different capacity, it all boils down to the relationship. Every single time, it's this commonality all the way through. That if you have that relationship, everything else kind of falls in place. Like, there's all these individual things and technicalities that we need support with, or that we need feedback on. But if we have that relationship with somebody, if they know this person is in my corner, I can count on them. I'm not in this alone. That really, for me, has been what has bridged like every chasm.
Yeah.
Melissa?
I think mentoring really comes down to that, having that relationship, but just someone that you know is going to be there, that's going to be supportive, that's going to really be that person that's going to know and see the best in you and kind of help bring that out. And also, I think a lot of it comes down to modeling. So we always look to, when we choose mentors, and what we ask when we look at our sites that we have is we look at those people who are your best teachers, and what do they do in their classrooms, and then can they articulate that to somebody else. So I think that really modeling and relationships is really what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I piggyback on your modeling? So one of the things that we do, one of the projects that CRIREP has, one of our special projects, is that we travel throughout the state and we train Department of Rehab, different Department of Rehab clients, special education teachers, different things. And we have different topics. But again, like I said, so it's like the relationship is what it boils down to. So at the end of these trainings, and there's a camera so they can see me, but we have had people that are visually impaired. And then I do this exercise and I'm like thinking on my feet, trying how I'm going to modify this and make this effective anyways. But you're here and you can see me and you can see me, so it's working. But we always have everybody stand up. And we tell the audience, touch your nose, and they touch their nose. And you're like, touch your forehead, and they touch their forehead. And I'm like, touch your nose. And everybody's touching their chin. Because children, youth, young people, students, adults, everybody, they do what we do. They don't do what we say. Mm-hmm. So that modeling piece of being a good teacher and being a good steward ourselves is so important. So yeah, that's always a good one. So if anybody needs a visual,
and I want to touch my chin now just because
it totally works, and it makes this huge impact on all of the educators that we've ever done it with. You just don't forget it. But being a facilitator up there in front of visually impaired people doing that was awful. But the modeling piece is so fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me is the relationship, getting back to that, and also providing the new teachers a safe environment. In other words, this is just between me and you. It's not going any further. And I always felt as a mentor that I was working for the teacher. Mm-hmm. I was there to serve them. If it meant sometimes me taking their attendance into the office or any little thing I could do, no matter what it was within my power, I tried to support them in any way, as well as the modeling and everything else. But I think being of service to those teachers.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think that's a big part of our model with CTE Teach and our TIP program is that mentor of record that we have does what we call non-evaluative observation. So they go and they sit in the classroom with their clipboard or with an iPad or something and take notes and really look at the instruction that's happening in the classroom and the relationships with the students. And, is that teacher teaching bell to bell and doing those instructional strategies that we're hoping they're learning as they go through their credential programs and our induction and then coming to them and giving them that feedback that they know we're giving, really with care and support, and so that it can prepare them for when that boss comes down and sits in there, that principal or that program manager, whoever their direct report might be, when they start evaluating them, that's their evaluation every year, that they know that they're better prepared for that. Right. And they can get that feedback that isn't affecting them, is not on the record necessarily. It's just somebody that's been there and done that and can provide them some really good feedback.
Yeah. And it's comfortable. Mm-hmm. They have a safety feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in a class and they were talking about evaluations and the person speaking said, there's so many evaluations that are done that are just checking the boxes to get them checked. Mm-hmm. But can that person actually take that evaluation, reflect on it, and become a better person before the next evaluation?
Right.
Helping them. And I think that's powerful. It's important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good.
So our next question is, if you were going to give somebody a list of do's and don'ts as a mentor, what would the list contain?
My big do would just really be to see that individual as an individual, to identify like what makes them unique, what are their interests, what do they already have that they're really, really good at that we can build on, would definitely be my do. I think my big don't is just being a good coach and a good leader, but not necessarily trying to solve the puzzle for them. Just being that mentor where, I've modeled riding the bike and I'm riding back along next to you, but the goal is that you need to ride the bike, right? I'm not always going to be here. So just to really set them up for success in the way that I'm not doing the work or I'm not dictating exactly the way the work needs to be done, but that their unique strengths and everything is what's building onto, they can ride that bike on their own. They don't need me.
Exactly. That's cool.
Yeah. Do's, I think it's do model, do question, ask them the questions, even the ones that are more difficult, because again, we as mentors, we provide that safe environment so that they can, or they should feel comfortable with asking them. So ask them those difficult questions, how do you think your lesson went that day that, I was in there observing you? What do you think your difficulty was in handling that, student discipline problem yesterday and those types of things. And then the don'ts really is, do all of that without judgment.
Right.
I think is the big one, because we're supposed to be that wraparound support for them. So I think that, and I can't really think of a lot of don'ts, but I think it's just, don't judge.
Yeah. Allow them to kind of be themselves. I read, so we've been doing a lot of like mentoring type quotes on our Twitter, and I read one, it might have been Steven Spielberg that said, like, don't try to create them to be like you, allow them to grow to be like them.
Yeah,
Right.
That's a
Right.
good one.
Be their own person.
Yeah, be the
Right.
person.
Well, I think definitely, I think at the end of the day, allowing them and asking, I think I'm piggybacking on you, asking them, how did it go? What did you do well? And where would you improve, rather than us telling them,
Here's what you should do.
Yes.
this is what you need to do. Okay.
Yeah.
And allowing them. And it's one of the things I always encourage teachers to do is, you teach a lesson plan all day, and is taking the time to sit down and reflect and making those notes on those lesson plans. So the next time you do it, you've got a leg up.
Yeah. That's great.
I know this year in our TIP program, I provided everyone a journal and it says chaos coordinator. And I think I got that because I went and I watched, do you remember I came to your classroom that one time? And the way I described your class was controlled chaos. So when I saw these journals that said chaos coordinator, I thought, oh, well, that's perfect then, because these teachers don't know what they're in for.
Right.
So I gave them that, and they've been writing in them, I hope. But this week, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at what they've put in there. And I'm going to, or not this week, it's next week. And I want them to identify something that somebody could either do for them, help them with, give them advice on, that would help them get through the end of the semester, because they're getting into the point where they're kind of getting, in the disillusionment phase.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to do a goal setting, because our next training in November, in a couple weeks, is going to be on the mentoring cycle. So I thought this would be a perfect time to help the teachers identify what their goal is or what they want to work on. So it's like using that journal to look and see, so what is a common thread? What is something here that I could really improve on in the classroom? So I'm trying to get them to do the reflection so they can see how they can in turn do that in their classroom with their students and how it's beneficial to them. So that's also like model to their students how that improves them. So, what advice would you give to current mentors for teachers now? Or for
my young people.
For your young people. Sorry.
No, you're fine. My advice is always just to stick to it. That you're going to come across some people that are really resistant to either the relationship or resistant to the help. And that trust builds over time. And so just keep showing up and keep being present and keep seeing them and keep putting in the effort. Even though you're not necessarily seeing the results of that yet, just as mentors, we have an obligation to stay so incredibly persistent. And still give it 100%, even if that's not reciprocated in the relationship yet.
Okay. Let me kind of throw a wrench into it. What would you say to a mentor that has a mentee, but the mentee really isn't receptive to what the mentor is trying to help them with?
Well, so I definitely say keep showing up, right? Because in all my experience where I have some really resistant young people, that will fade. Like, you keep showing up and you keep being energetic and enthusiastic, and it's almost impossible to not have that have a positive impact on you. If I'm showing up to your classroom and I'm excited to be there and I'm offering feedback and I'm taking a genuine interest in you and your success and the success of your students, if I keep bringing that enthusiasm every single time, I'm going to weigh you down. I'm going to get to you. I'm going to win. You know, like, you're going to start reciprocating that. And maybe, pay it to and be self-aware and go, okay, well, maybe my approach, with Chris needs to be a little different. What does Mr. McClung need from me? And ask those questions. But really, I have never found like my enthusiasm and persistence not eventually paying off.
Okay. And the answer is always going to be Dr. Pepper.
For you. Okay, I got you. I can do that. That's my mom. They call it DP. They're all from Texas. It's a thing.
Or chocolate. Yeah, I think, when in our model where you take someone from an industry and you put them in the classroom, they're so used to kind of being the king of their own castles before. They are the ones that know the answers. They know their topics, their subjects, their industry inside and out. And then you take them with that knowledge, but then you plop them into a classroom with 20, 30 high schoolers alone, just being in a classroom with teenagers alone. But then you gotta inspire them, and you gotta teach them, and you gotta follow all the rules and deal with like all of the things that come just by being in a school environment and things. So I think there's a high level of uncomfortableness with that. So I think some of that resistance sometimes comes from just overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. So I think that persistence in being there, that empathy, just kind of remembering what it's like and put yourself in their shoes and let them know that it's okay, that you're going to have bad days. Sometimes it's going to suck. You're going to go home like, I quit.
Right, first year.
You come back
every night, crying every night.
You come back the next day and you try something, and you see that one light bulb go off and you're like, okay, I'm in the right place. And so I think just empathy and being there and just reminding them that it's okay if you don't have all the answers sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Google it.
Well, I think too, Ann, thinking back on your first day as a teacher, I remember because it was a long time ago, my first day, and it basically was, well, here's your keys, here's your classroom, and here are your students. Bye.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I knew that industry, but they don't seem as receptive to it. I thought they would have wanted to listen and hang on every one of my words. And I was somewhat surprised when they didn't.
Yeah.
So just keeping that in mind, that's where the teachers are coming from. You've been there.
That was the same thing I thought on my first, when I applied for the job. I thought, well, these are going to be students that have signed up to the class. They want to be there. That was my interpretation from the outside. But then when you get in there and they're like, no, I didn't, they just put me in this class. And I'm thinking, oh, no wonder it's so difficult to get your attention. So
I'm thinking I could teach them how to make some good money.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we're going to transition into our end of our conversation just about. But Marisa, who is your mentor shout out?
Oh, so my mentor shout out, I should have picked somebody for my professional life, but as soon as you say like, who was your mentor, I go back to being that resistant 7th grader, where I had my teacher, Miss Seaman, had me for history my 7th grade year. And then I had her and I was awful all year long. I was horrible, and she was always kind to me, but I was awful. And then I had her my 8th grade year again. And then I was just going through some things in life, and I had like stopped even taking a backpack to school. I wasn't participating. I showed up with no materials, and I would just sit in the back of the classroom with an attitude. And she pulled me out of her class, and she just did that very basic thing where she saw me. She had noticed a change in me, and she had just said, "What's going on? How are you?" And she had said, when I saw your name on my roster this year, I felt really bad for you because you really didn't enjoy me last year. And so here I was being such a stinker, and she was having empathy for me. And she was just saying, hey, I see you back there, and I'm here for you, and I'm fighting for you. And it just made a world of difference. And I just feel like that's so important, that we're dealing with teachers on, some of their worst days. It's like, I see you and I'm here for you, and let me know how I can support.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Marisa. And I'm going to read this because I don't have it memorized yet. Thank you for listening and seeing the very first CTE Teach podcast. I hope you enjoyed your time with us. Each month, we are planning to bring you new panelists, new discussions about just CTE in general, career technical education. You can follow us on Twitter at CTE_Teach. You can watch this on YouTube if you're not seeing it already. And then also you can listen to this on multiple podcast apps, including Spotify and whatnot. So I'm going to try to close every month with an awesome quote. And this one is from Theodore Roosevelt, which says, "No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care." Thanks for watching, listening. Bye.
Happy teaching.
Happy teaching.